Bambos, Bambos, Bambos. You're the man.
I'm the
You're the
man.
man. You're
Hey,
the man.
this week has been really interesting.
It has been.
Ambiguous. What was it?
Ambiguous loss was a big story.
Then we have stress, anxiety.
Yeah.
We've had
We had what else do we have? A lot of the journey to well-being starts inward.
yeah.
Yeah.
And today we're having strip clubs,
Toxic relationships and depression. And we're going to have that with Lisa Latimer.
Latimer.
I think I pronounced it correctly. We're going to discuss all of that
and so much more.
And so much more. Like we need to discuss
the best show in the world. It's called A Wonderful Chaos.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Behind the scenes jokes that you guys will never ever hear.
I had a funny moment today. Some man, I'm sitting in a restaurant setting, and a man walks up to me and says, "Are you Andy Chaliff?"
And you said no.
I said, "Who are you, and what do you want from me?" And I said, "Yeah." And he says, "I watch your show."
What's his name?
I don't remember what his name was.
If you're watching the show right now, Mr. Person that approached Andy today, please comment below as listening.
Let me think. Maybe the name will come to me. But I thought it was very nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really sweet.
Which cafe were you in?
I don't know. I was in a health food cafe, where one of those places that you get shakes and things. It looks really bad from the outside, and everyone looks like they're granola wearing people. That kind of place.
Oh fuck. and people with yoga mats coming in.
Yeah, there were some yoga mats that came in as well, but it wasn't upscale. It was not upscale. It was a very downscale kind of place.
Street?
It was on Overtome, I think, or Overtome,
yeah. On a corner.
Yeah, on a corner.
Alchemist.
Alchemist. That was it. It was the Alchemist.
Not go there. Oh shit!
Yes,
we shouldn't do bad publicity.
I went to the Alchemist. For those that in Amsterdam, I went to the Alchemist.
And our friend Jasmine sometimes works there.
Oh, yes. Our friend Jasmine has also been on the show. And the person who came to me was a friend of Yasmin's.
What's his name?
I don't know what his name is, Bambos. I told you that already.
I'm just testing your age. Depression,
toxic relationship, and strip clubs. So, I thought to myself, when we make a title for a show, let's make it so outrageous that people think, Jesus, what other word could they add to make it more absurd?
Dark Night of the Soul.
Yeah, then no one shows up. Because the funny thing is, we probably could call this a Dark Night of the Soul show, because obviously you're going to have to go through some rough stuff in order to find and make peace, right?
If you haven't seen that show, guys,
it's our favorite show.
It's one of our favorite shows.
Yes.
And it's also not our most watched show just because of the title, you need to watch it.
So that's what we've learned on our show. Our shows get watched if we put absurd titles on.
And if it includes sex, masturbation, people are so in.
It gets in. It gets in. And if it's I went through a really tough time in my life, people are like, why would I watch that? I'm going through that in my life every day. Yes. I also had, Haida, our friend that we had on for their show. I think we had him on twice now. He sent me a beautiful message yesterday, and it was I've seen some people, since we're taking a long hiatus, people have been reaching out to me and just sharing, their deep gratitude, and I've really found that special. He, we wrote this really nice message, and then he ended it, and he just said, "And I love you." And it really brought a tear to my eye, because it was what I felt is so seen by him, because he's like, of course, that's how you interact when you're in the world and you just want to show your affection for a person. You don't stand guarded. You don't pretend like you're bigger or anything more. You really let them know you feel. And it just felt really, really special.
Beautiful. So, and we have JC Barnett.
Thank you, JC, for joining us every day.
With his grandson's photo.
Yep.
We have Magdalena, of course.
In Vienna, Austria, listening.
And we have our very own hometown girl, Iris Offer.
Iris Offer. Thank you guys all for being with us. So, How are you?
Doing pretty good. As you know, I've been dedicating all my spare time, whatever that looks like, on doing LinkedIn cold messaging.
Yeah.
For anyone who wants to know, go on LinkedIn, and as Andy kind of creeps around Facebook finding people to do our show, I'm looking for clients as a photographer, and it's been really cool. I've had 2 clients booked today,
Oh, wow.
and it's like as I'm sending the messages out, I've seen also there's a different energy in how I'm working. It's like I'm sending love out.
Yeah.
I feel excitement for my new packages. I'm like, oh, this is love. This is love.
Yeah.
And I had a guy. He's like in a financial alternative scene,
Uh-huh.
and we spoke for like a good 40 minutes about a shoot that we've booked now for September. And as we hanged up, I was like, just want to say that it feels like I'm going to photograph a friend in a few weeks.
Yeah.
And apparently my camera is going to be there, and we're going to have a coffee and
Yeah.
and he just laughed. He's like, yeah, I feel the same way.
Uh,
And it's been really beautiful.
that's beautiful. Yeah, that's my life, right?
I mean, rewind half a year ago when I was living in fear and everything I was doing was coming from fear,
Yeah.
tension. It's being a big shift. Like I'm in my body, like, fuck, I'm living in this body now. Yeah.
Yeah. You're not separating at the head just to survive.
No.
Yeah, it's beautiful. I'm always fascinated when people want to bring me business and think that I'm looking to make money and not realizing that I'm actually interested in finding meaningful connections. So it's like, I don't know where they get their, like a kind of the lens you look through the world. Like, tell me someone who's in deep need, who's loving and doing all the work and just needs that last bit of effort. I'll make time. But come and say, hey, I got $150 for you. It's like, hold on, I'm not really waiting for that $150.
Just to let you guys know,
Uh.
it's 500 an hour, and it would be for an investment of what a year.
What are you talking about?
Well, they need to have like a year subscription with you,
Yeah. I usually work with
because
6
change
months.
doesn't happen in an hour, guys.
No,
Let's
it
get that
doesn't.
straight.
Yeah. The 500 is to discourage people from calling me. So we are going to bring on Lisa before we go any further. Hello.
Hey guys.
Hello.
So first question to you. If you had one night, would it be with me or him?
Oh, let's get down to the good stuff right away.
Andy, she was a pole dancer, not a
Listen, if she chose me, I would ask her if she got her damn lenses clean. I'd say, Jesus, you're looking,
Hey,
we should stand up and do a twist first.
do you know how many people said that they would do Andy?
Really?
Yeah, of course.
Nice.
It's got good grips.
Incredible. I don't know what they're talking about, but I'm happy that someone said that. Thank you for
Especially men.
Yeah, especially men. I'm really, I got so many men after me. It's amazing. It's absolutely, it was so funny because Bambos and I always go to the fitness that we used to, but pre-COVID time.
And we used to sit in this nude sauna.
And we used to sit in the nude sauna and we just have a time. And then there was this guy that was in love with me. And I mean, I'm sitting next to like these Adonises of human beings. And I'm this chubby guy in the corner. And he just and he was a good looking guy.
Well,
I mean,
he knew he wouldn't have a chance with me. So
possibly.
he went
So
for you.
he went for me.
He went for daddy.
Oh, yeah. Daddy, that's probably it.
Oh,
Lisa, thank
Yeah.
you for joining us
thanks
again.
for having me. Thank you.
Like just getting to know you before we went live, I'm like, oh, this is going to be a fun show. You have like, it feels like you fully embraced.
Yeah.
And even looking at the title is like, you're like, ha ha ha, this is funny.
Yeah.
The backdrop, I love that you guys went with that one.
I'm thinking to myself, like on the show title alone, like even when I saw it, I'm like, how absurd is this? So how is it for you even to see a show title like that and think, God, how do we even start a show like this?
Oh gosh, you started anywhere with that title. You could start anywhere. I think people pretty much anticipate that it's going to be that shit crazy just by the title. But
Yeah.
honestly, it with the crazy title, ironically, I feel like it's probably going to be such an impactful interview because, you know, people that aren't afraid to own their shift, that's usually where you really get the nuggets from. People that can come to you bare ass and talk about it and walk through what they went through. That's where you really get nuggets that help you.
Yeah.
Nice.
She just said something. I don't know if I heard it correctly, but it was really, it really shifted how you said own their shift. I heard. Is that what you
Own their
said?
their
Yeah.
shift.
Yeah, own their shift. I do own your shift lives every Monday in my Facebook group, and I'm like, you have to own your shit technically before you can go anywhere. Like owning your shit is the starting point. It's the jump off point before you can hit the ground running. So it just makes sense to start there, and then.
No, I totally agree with you. And I heard it incorrectly because of the Long Island accent. I heard own your shift.
No, it is own your shift. It is own your shift.
Okay, good. Because
that's her podcast.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Because now I'm losing my. I think it's an incredible name because of what it means.
Yeah.
Yeah, special. Yeah.
I'm really curious because you've said you've been on other podcasts.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is this the most outrageous title you've had, or like?
Are you kidding me? Absolutely. Most of the podcasts I go on, I talk about how you link your personal growth and development to your business growth. So we're not exactly talking about swinging from poles and
Bravo.
Yeah, but it's
that's
so
what
true.
attracted me to this one. I was like, oh, I could have some fun talking about this and give some nuggets along the way.
Yeah, isn't it funny? Because the one thing that I'm like always frustrated in life is when we push away our past as if we should shame it or think negatively, then basically we still have the work to do. Like once you just see it as a process, something I went through, something that doesn't, if I look back at it, I certainly wouldn't do that today, but hey, it's what happened. And in ways it formed and shaped me. So I'm even grateful for it. That's when we've kind of made it out the back end.
Absolutely. And it's funny because you hear a lot of gurus saying, oh, you could just light a match and burn the bridge to your past, or don't look back because that's not the direction you're going. There's so much value there. You learn so much from looking back at it, as long as you do it in a way that's, that's mindful, and from a perception where this is value. This isn't something that I'm tied to. This doesn't predict my future.
Yeah.
These are just gems that are going to help me avoid pitfalls along the way. I like to say that like our limiting beliefs in our past could be like a horror movie character, like a Michael Myers from Halloween, where just when you think you've slayed it because you've either avoided it and you've been going on long enough without any major hiccups, all of a sudden you turn around and there's that white lynx you're looking at you, and it's like, fuck, I didn't kill it. And it just keeps coming back. So yeah, getting into your past and owning your shit is the jump off point.
Yeah.
So my first question, Lisa, is who was the girl that walked into, I don't know what it was first, toxic relationship or strip club?
Yeah. It was the relationship came first, but it started to get toxic. So it was a little, it happened very close together, I have to say. So the line with that is kind of blurred, but yeah, they got more and more toxic together. Once the two combined, it turned into a shit fest.
How old are we talking when this began?
Well, I was 16. You know what? No. So I have to say the toxic relationship started first. I was 16 when I started the relationship. I obviously didn't get into strip clubs at 16. So I started in those clubs when I was 20.
Okay.
But that relationship lasted 11 years. So the point where it started going downhill, and when I started working in the strip clubs, it lines up about the same.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
You stayed in the relationship for 11 years.
For 11 years. That's a long time.
A childless relationship where there was nothing keeping me to this motherfucker. Okay. There was nothing there, no bonds, no connection. What it was, and we're starting to see people talk about it more now, the trauma bonds, you know what I mean? And just your brain craves the familiar, even when the familiar is a shit circumstance, a shit situation. Your brain knows what to expect. And when you start trying to change, that's why sometimes you feel like you get pulled back in. Your brain wants that comfort zone.
I'm curious what a shitstorm of a day would look like in that relationship.
Yeah. What was like a worst day that you had in that relationship?
Oh, absolute gaslighting. So funny enough, my intuition was so on point. I used to have dreams about my ex cheating on me. And I do my little searching and digging. Sure enough, I'd always find something to confront him about. I'd get gaslit within an inch of me knowing which way was up and which way was down. And, that added to the uncertainty.
Gaslit, that means when someone lies to you so openly and comfortably that they try to convince you that you're crazy.
And you think that it's you, and you think that the problem is you because they've done such a good job of just naturally making you feel like that. So the worst situation I would say was, this was a good one. I was living in Brooklyn this was the second and last toxic relationship that I was in. And I didn't know that he had a drug problem that he was hiding from me. I was believe it or not, I worked in strip clubs, but I was naive to drugs, and thank God I never fell into that trap. But he had heroin addiction. And so one day I took maybe 20 minutes longer than usual to come home because I stopped at a store. They didn't have what I wanted. So I didn't have a receipt to prove that I stopped at a store. So I come home and he's convinced that I was out cheating on him in 20 minutes. Like, the craziest quickie you could possibly imagine. So, and not realizing that he was reeling from having gone back onto heroin, if you could picture like Russian roulette type of, with a knife though, I was threatened for like an hour at knife point to just admit that I was cheating on him. And like, what do you do in a situation where someone is on drugs and they're so convinced of what they believe the truth is, but it's not actually the truth? Part of me was just like, appeal to him and tell him what he seems to want to hear, which is that you were cheating on him. But then the other part of me was like, no, fuck that. Stick to your truth. You weren't cheating on him, and you've got to make him see that. Like, it's your job to convince him that you love him. Bullshit. So he finally was, and just to say, this was a year, I think this was back in 2005 or 2008. There had been a lot of stories on the news at this time of young women being killed by their boyfriends. And what was going through my mind at that time was, holy shit, my parents are going to get that phone call.
Yeah.
My parents don't deserve to be one of these parents that gets the phone call that that their daughter was found stabbed by their significant other. And here's the kicker. That wasn't the craziest thing. The craziest thing was I convinced him that I wasn't cheating on him. He came down off of the high, I guess, and he said to me, I'll understand if you're not here tomorrow when I get back from work. And here's the crazy fucking part. I was there. And he came in from work, so seeing me, like I thought he'd be so happy that I was there. He was actually disturbed that I was there. So I had to say, and only in reflecting back, I said to myself, wow, this person who was like in a state of batshit crazy on heroin actually is more disturbed about what happened last night than I am. And that actually prompted him to go into rehab because he said, you deserve better. I deserve better. Like, this is fucked up. So as much as I would like to admit that at that time I was strong enough and I had the whatever in me to leave that situation, no, it was actually someone who had a heroin addiction, who was fucked up, who had a pattern of, going to jail and a rough childhood, but had a pattern of making horrible decisions that made this really responsible decision that affected both of our lives positively.
Wow.
That blows my mind.
Yeah.
Everyone in my life who I've ever known to be on heroin
didn't have the moral fortitude
to
shift out.
It was like that was even more important than life, than anything.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Yeah. That's how that ended. It wasn't my own, whatever. What do I chalk it up to? I chalk it up to the hand of God and meaning. Some people might chalk it up to the universe. I chalk it up to, divine intervention. Something sparked something within him to make a move that got us out of that toxic union.
So let's get to the bare roots of this. Yeah. Was it mom or dad that didn't give you the love you needed, so you needed to go to some weirdo like this?
Funny. What's funny is I have a really close relationship with my parents now. And my father, when I came clean to him about what I had done, and that was only, recently, I'm sure I can't imagine what a dagger through his heart that must have been. But there was a time where I was constantly bumping heads with both of my parents. What led me to that, though, was not a lack of attention or love from them, but it was this message that I received from both of them, which was, my mother was a stay-at-home mother, right? And she had previously been working very independent. my father used to always throw jabs at her and say things to me and my sisters like, don't, and my mother would say too, because she didn't like her situation, don't ever rely on a man. Go make your own money. So I was sent unintentionally, by the way, this is not their fault, but I processed that as the person that's in the relationship that has the money, has the control, has the power. You don't ever want to be the person that's on the receiving end of that, right? And here's the irony in that is that even though in those two toxic relationships that I was in, even though I was the one with the money, I was not the one with the power and not the one with the control, because emotionally, it was not there. It was not there. The confidence wasn't there. The self-assurance wasn't there. The money was there. So yeah, I could support myself, but beyond that money, beyond that message of you need to be smart, you need to go to school, and you need to make a lot of money. Well, I was like, fuck that. I found a shortcut to making the money. So I don't, I was constantly, I would go to school, stop 3 weeks into a semester, be like, fuck this. I'm going to go to school to come out and make a nice tax burdened living like the rest of these fools. That's the arrogance that you have when you're younger and you think you know it all. And then, of course, I didn't have the emotional maturity and development. So ironically, I thought I was carrying out my parents' advice, but boy, was I mistaken. It actually led me to stall for over 11 years.
Wow. It's funny because my wife, Ronnie, will always tell me the story of how her grandma took her aside and told her never be reliant on a man.
Yeah.
And she remembers that from very young age. And she'll share that often with me, how it was really from a very young age told her, don't be reliant on a man. You have to be able to take care of yourself.
Right. And it's so well-intentioned, but think about it. It's such general advice. And so understanding how things can get processed so sideways, I do things completely differently with my kids. Like we sit down and have conversations, even though they're only 8 and 6. And, I don't necessarily drop things so heavy like that on them. I relate it in other ways, but yeah, things go sideways in your head once it goes from here to here and here,
Oh man. The impact that we have just from the things that we say, and I'm sure it was all good intentioned. I have a question about you said that you would always look for things in the relationship.
Yeah, because I knew it was no good. I knew.
Okay, so there was no trust, but still you were there.
I was still there. Yep.
So what was your predominant feeling like that was dominating you then? Because as you were speaking, I just feel tension in my body.
Yeah. The predominant feeling then was a place of needing. See, even though I had the money, I still felt like I needed this person for validation. So just because, and I tell you, everything that I say is so ironic, right? Because just because I was on stage and I had people throwing money at me and, whatever, you think, oh, that would make you feel visible, right? That makes you feel wanted. No, it didn't do that for me. So being with this person, the fact that this person chose me, even though he was, occasionally here, there, and wherever, that at that time, because I was so undeveloped, up here, that made me feel validated. I have a close family member who was going through this recently. It's the pick me. Like, I'm not your only one, but as long as you pick me, the majority of the time, and you put me in the most valuable, like the MVP space, like that's good enough for me. And that's bullshit. And there are way too many of us that in different situations, not just relationships, that sit there and feel like, okay, well, as long as I'm like, here, like that's good enough for me. It shouldn't be good enough for anyone.
We had a show with someone who was a karaoke waitress. It was one of my favorite shows. And one of the hardest things for me to hear was that they rank ordered the waitresses. And so that when someone came in, they would choose the pictures, and the pictures that were higher on the board were more expensive. So these women were actually gaining their self of identity through where they appeared on this board.
Well, if you think about it, I mean, that's not shocking. Look at social media today. Look at how many of us, and especially young people, place so much of their identity and their value based on how many likes, comments, shares, something that something that their post gets. So we have a way in society of kind of doing that in all different things, and it's all vanity. It's all vanity metrics, whether it's on social media, whether it's, you know, a system like that. It's all vanity metrics. And the thing about that is it's a house of cards that it falls, and then when it falls, everything comes crumbling down on your head, and then you don't know which way is up or which way is down.
Yeah. Give me an idea. How much would you make a week when you worked in this place, or a night, just for relatives, so I have an idea of what this really is?
You want to laugh?
Yeah.
How much do you think? Take a guess.
500.
Okay, Andy.
I have 300.
Yes. I would average between $200 to $300, and I could have made that type of money waitressing or bartending. But you want to know what happened? I would talk to, you know, friends, family, whatever. This is how limiting beliefs, and particularly other people's limiting beliefs, are so powerful, and get into your head and start fucking with your head. You know, people be like, "Oh, you're gonna waitress? Oh my God, what if you drop drinks? Oh my God, I would feel so stupid if I made a mess. And oh my God, you're gonna waitress? You're not good with money. Are you gonna know how much change to give people back?" And my biggest thing, stemming from an incident that happened to me in 4th grade that I recall like yesterday, where I was shamed and made like an example of by this one teacher for getting a lot of math questions wrong on a homework assignment. My biggest fear was not looking stupid in front of people. So even though I could have made that very unimpressive amount of money doing just about anything, I chose that because that's how little I thought of myself. That's how little I thought of my abilities. You know, I would hear all the time, you know, "Oh, you have such a nice body." And my mother, who knew what I was doing at the time, said, "Oh, you know, that body was a curse. You shouldn't have had that body. You wouldn't be doing what you're doing." And and so for a long time, you start to think that's the best thing about yourself. Like, you know, without that, how am I really going to make money? You know, and it wasn't until all these years later that I sat back, and the best money and the best fulfillment that I have, I'm not using this shit. I'm on Zooms and things like this, and, you know, and fully clothed. And I've never felt sexier or more confident or more fulfilled in my life. And it's just, I don't regret it at all, but it's just such a shame that it takes so long sometimes for us to get to that place, to get to that realization that we're selling ourselves short.
When you say us, you mean women in general?
People in general. No, people in general. Guys do that shit too. I know plenty of guys that sell themselves short.
I had a call today with a woman who I had coached her 2 sons. And she said, "I want to talk to you because my sons had a really great experience and I want to hear your voice." So we're talking on the phone, and it was really quite a beautiful talk. And she, at some point, was recalling her life and telling me how at 50, she was looking back and she was very emotional, and how it was hard for her not to see how her life was a failure and how she'd, you know, not done whatever she'd want to do with her life. And she ended up leaving this individual, her ex at that now. And she didn't celebrate that. She looked at it as, I wasted the time. And she didn't say, wow, finally I got the courage. So it was funny, as I was hearing her speak, I heard the narration in my head against her narration of the exact same event. And it was, she's looking back at everything lost. I'm like, wow, you've gotten basically the kind of moment in life where you get an opportunity to like be free of the past, but actually you're still a slave to the damn person in this thing because you can't let go of that shit, you know? And
exactly. And we don't celebrate our wins, right? We're so used to looking at something through a negative lens and a lens of regret. I almost feel like regret is like a drug. And we see so many people around us stuck in this perpetual state of regret and could have, should have, would have, that it almost feels wrong if we speed past that and go right to fulfillment and skip all that bullshit, right? Everyone else is there. Why? Who am I to get ahead of that shit? But really, regret is, regret is, it's self-torture. It's self-torture. And within regrets, there are things that you can flip the script on and actually find, like you said, worth celebrating. And that's what we need to do more. We need to be celebrating shit more rather than sitting in this quicksand of regret.
Yeah, many people will think, oh, that's positive. That's like
Toxic
positive.
positivity.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And in a way, it is a mindset. You're like rewiring your brain to see the world in a certain lens.
Hmm. And toxic positivity. Like, I'm not going to sit there and say if you murdered someone, find the silver lining of that. It's it's within reason. It's all relative, but like there are just certain situations where instead of seeing the mistakes, see the resiliency. Like, I look at it like, wow, yeah, I fucked up, but I made it through that shit. I made it
Yeah.
through that shit, and now that's my gift. That experience is my gift to share with other people to empower them through whatever their storm is that they're going through, or if they've come out on the other side of that, to make them feel like that's not something that you have to throw in your closet and be so overly protective of and live your life in fear of people finding out. Like, stand
Yeah.
firm in who you are. Yeah.
So I want to go back to the relationship part of the story.
Mhm.
Like, so he goes into detox and he goes and asks for help.
Yeah.
So how did the relationship evolve from that point, and where did you say, I'm done?
Yeah. So what happened was, once again, I didn't say I'm done. I, at that point, finally felt comfortable enough that, one thing that's great about my parents, they always allow us to land back home. Like, it's like when you're playing tag and there's home base, that's where you're safe. Like, they always
Yeah.
come back to base, like when we needed to collect ourselves. So I desperately wanted to go back before them, but I could not stomach the idea of putting them in the line of possible danger. Like I was in, and my attitude was, Lisa, you made your fucking bed, now you're gonna lie in it. You're not gonna bring this around your younger sisters. You're not gonna bring this around your family. But when he did that, I knew that he was okay with separation. And so I felt safe enough to go back there. And the relationship, like, I still went to go visit him. He wound up moving on while he was there. And that wound up being the thing that I needed. Like, listen, if he could do this, if he could make responsible decisions, if he can move on from this relationship, what the fuck are you waiting on?
Yeah.
You're more than capable.
Isn't it incredible when people heal themselves, they become an example for everybody else? Because in some weird way, like I remember when I was in my family dynamic at a young age, and I was participating in all the shit. Then at some point I went to go see a psychiatrist, psychologist. I don't know what it was at that time, and I was getting healthier. And then I noticed that all of a sudden the family was starting to wonder what's going on because Andy seems okay. And then they started going to psychiatrist. So it's about like, I didn't tell them to do it. They just started to be an example of, okay, that feels like it's a little cleaner energy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. Because before that, I mean, as an example to my much younger sisters, they would hear me on the phone fighting with my ex and crying and what the hell kind of example is that? So by the time I went back this next time, I had enrolled in ultrasound school. I said, you know what? I was a beautician. I was like, this was fun. It's not going to be a living for myself. I went back to ultrasound school. I got around a different group of people. I wasn't around women who were also themselves in these shitty relationships. And, it was that camaraderie, of, oh,
misery and company.
Yeah, taking turns of terrible stories and, oh, girl, you'll be all right. Encouraging each other to just be strong and continue the same path. And ironically, those relationships took an absolute nosedive once I started to, get better. I thought that I would be this, like you said, this beacon of hope for them. And, oh, hey, look what's possible. They didn't want to look at me and see the reflection of where they still were. So those relationships also fell off, where you would think that those would be like your biggest supporters. Not necessarily.
I love the way that you phrased that one. We discussed it a little bit on yesterday's show. I was a reflection of what they didn't want to see in themselves.
Mm-hmm.
That's really beautifully stated.
Yeah, and there's
interesting. I was just also pointing is that I noticed that for many years I hid my happiness because I saw that it made some people feel uncomfortable, or at least I sensed that, and I would sort of limit my really sharing of how happy or how well I felt. I mean, even during COVID time, I was having the best time, and it was like and said, guys, this is like the best year, like you couldn't do that. There, of course, people were suffering and so on, but
he posted a picture of an airline he was on, and he was the only one on it, traveling from the States to Holland.
Yeah.
And then Andy said, my private jet, which was like a joke, but someone sent me a whole message like like vanity, showing off your money. I don't remember what the
No,
context
I
was.
just laugh because for me, life is a joke. So I'm sitting there like, I got a private jet. This is my mind right now. And then I realize the next moment, like the humor of it is like from someone through the lens of, oh, I guess he can afford a jet like that. And I guess he's showing off his wealth. Like I'm thinking, on what planet are you, and worse off, if I had a jet, I'm sure as hell not going to sit in economy class in a big jet.
Right? Well, because we're taught that you can't be tone deaf. So you have to like tone down your happiness for everyone else in the room, right?
Yeah.
You can't be above the level of everyone else in the room because then you're tone deaf. Then you're insensitive to other people's needs, right? Yeah. God forbid you be that light of hope. You be that voice of humor. Like let's take a minute to just take a deep breath, exhale, and have a little laugh real quick. Right. So yeah, society.
We had a guest on several. It feels like years ago now. It would have been like we started this show at the beginning of COVID, and we're now at 267 shows. So this show didn't exist pre-COVID. And this one guest, Kirk Scott, who had a better vocabulary than I did, he said, "When I come on or watch your show, and maybe if he's watching today, he'll correct it. There is a word he sent me. He says it was cockkind, some SAT word that I don't know, but it was a land of joy and hope in the middle of misery, like a fabricated land of and I wrote back and said, was this kind of an insult? And he said, no, it's really like I really listened to you thinking there's real hope out there.
Yeah.
See? And we don't actually feel there's hope.
No, exactly.
You're faking it.
Well, I think we feel joy in spite of the fact that we still feel a sense of hope. Yeah, I would say that. What were you going to say?
Yeah, there's a celebration of life. Mm-hmm. There's also the other part where people put a mask on and show that everything's good.
Right.
Yeah. There's also the celebration of the shit, and there's also the not talking about the shit.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
And everything has its place depending on the context. Mm-hmm. Today, actually, I made a post on social media where I kind of shared a little bit about in the past, it was really difficult to share about financial success and being in a loving relationship. And today I'm like, yeah, this is where I am right now. Bam.
Right.
And in the past, I'd be scared because in case I lose it, and then what? And now it's like, this is what it is right now.
Yeah.
And I'm really happy.
Yeah.
And I'm sharing this.
Exactly. We can learn to enjoy what is without overthinking, is it going to remain like this? Is it going to change?
Well, hopefully it does.
Yeah, I remember when I would say to Bambos where he was having I would start celebrating what was going on. He's like, Andy, it's only this month. Andy, who knows what's going to happen?
If you watch the first half a year to a year of this show, I'm crying. He's laughing.
It was painful. It was painful.
But the ratings went up when I cried.
Yeah, when he cried, we got a lot of viewership because everyone's like, what's going on here? We got to watch now.
Oh, that's funny.
One of the best stories. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, and people want to see emotion now and want to hear emotion. Like we're walking around with our faces covered, or we're not walking around and seeing our neighbors at all. So to see someone showing real emotion when we're all feeling real emotion and not really getting a chance to see and witness other people feeling it and going through it, that's huge.
Yeah, I have to admit, my past state of being, which was related to also my bank account back then, it was kind of addictive. It became a way of being, a way of getting validated attention.
Yeah.
And in stepping into the celebration, it's like, oh, wow. So today I was on the And It's Fucking Great group. And I was like, what the fuck do I share here?
Exactly.
Because that group is really for sharing things which are a bit vulnerable or something that's really difficult for you. And then you end it with hashtag And It's Fucking Great.
Yeah.
I mean, if I were you, Bambos, I would say, I'm having a great time. I got nothing to post here, and that's fucking great. That's what I would have loved to see.
I love it. No, but something, what you said, though, is really on point, though, because it becomes addictive to stay in that kind of, not victimhood, I don't want to call it victimhood, but in that place where where people come up to you, like when I would tell other people about what I was dealing with, right? It wasn't about me having to get my shit together. When I had those abusive relationships and just people around me not doing what I thought they should be doing, it was always, if only everyone else around me would just get their shit together, then I could do A, B, C, and D. So as long as I was in that mentality, I didn't have to take ownership for how I played a role in it. I didn't have to take ownership for my own personal growth. And I had other people that when I would talk to, I would be the one that they felt bad for. And then they would compliment me. I was fucking up left and right. And I'd get compliments because I'd hear, oh, you're so amazing. You talk like you're such an old soul. Like, the people around you are so lucky to have you. Like, I don't know how you do it. So that would make me feel good. It was this artificial blowing smoke up my ass. And I knew it was lies, but I then, on top of that, felt comfortable enough to lie to myself and just accept it.
Yeah. Nice. I have another question for you.
Go.
Are you ready?
I'm ready.
How was it for the first time when you came out of the closet with all this and when you started talking about it? Can you share a little bit the space before and what it took for you to take that step?
Absolutely. It was probably right around the same time you guys started your podcast. So it was sometime like just after COVID hit. And my husband had just had a stroke and was recovering from a stroke. So there was like major shit happening. So he had a stroke, then COVID hit. Then I had the kids home all the time. And just emotions and so much was just heavy. And I had to, like time and necessity was just pushing me forward. I had to make sure they were okay and dealing with their father's condition. I had to make sure he was okay. So time pushed me forward. And then one night I had this dream. I had gotten into a little bit of a falling out with my mother and a couple of my sisters. And I had this dream where I felt like everything that I grew up being told and hearing was fucking bullshit. And I had the most epic breakdown and rebuild. And so in that, I sat there and I said, what the fuck am I doing? Hiding my shit? Like, who am I to hide my shit? Like, look at everything that I am holding down around me. And I'm going to sit here and walk on eggshells and pretend like I didn't do certain things that I did. Fuck this. Everyone in my life deserves to know the real me. And I deserve to be seen and heard fully. I called my father and I had a good conversation with him. And one of the things I broke it to him that, I wound up doing that because, A, B, C, and D. And I didn't say he was, to blame, but I just said, this was my train of thought. This is how I processed it. And then my poor husband. And then I went to my
Okay, but your husband didn't know about this until you told him.
He knew that I worked in strip clubs, but he thought that it was in the capacity of like cocktail waitressing.
Okay.
So I came clean to him, and the poor thing, he's like recovering from a stroke. So, and he said to me, because he never lost his sense of humor and he's doing so much better now, thank God. But he's like, I like how you fucking wait till I'm half crippled to tell me this shit.
And 2 kids in.
Exactly. Exactly. It's not after 1 kid you thought you could get away telling me. You need 2 kids to think that you can tell me.
He's such a fucking gem. It's unbelievable. But so, and I came clean to him because you get to a point in life, and again, I wish we didn't wait, male or female, I wish we didn't wait so long in our lives to do this shit, but where you're just like, whoever is still in my life, because I don't have that phone full of numbers of wanting to hang out and shit like that. The few people that I still have in my life, I'm willing to whittle that down even more.
Yeah.
By showing who I really am and letting you know truly what I've been through. And
how many people left you?
Yeah, how many people left?
None.
Beautiful.
None.
It's funny though, because if I'm with you right now and spending this hour with you, you're really speaking like it's like it's a waterfall, and I can imagine like just before COVID, your voice was probably like damned.
Well, I was hysterical crying. Like when my father, I delivered it over text messages. My husband, I obviously delivered it to in person, and I was hysterical crying. I woke up from this dream in what almost was like a panic attack, and he was so disturbed. He was like, "Oh my God, what the fuck's wrong?" I'm like, "No, the kids are right. I need to talk to you." It's ironic that that's your perception of it, because for the first time, I felt like my voice was finally big. And when I got that out, it allowed me to show up in my business even bigger than I had been playing it. So there is such, like, when you take the shackles off of yourself, then life gets interesting. Life gets good.
Yeah.
But now you have harnessed this power of curiosity and possibility, right? Oh my God, if I could be this free, if I could feel this unweighted, what else can I do in my life? Or who else
Yeah.
can I affect, you know?
I was actually referring to the time you were wearing the shackles. You were
Mm.
probably like a dam, holding
Oh,
everything in.
you know what? When I first started in that industry, I would bump into someone from high school. I said, "Oh, I'm working in a strip club right now," and their jaw would drop. I mean, I was such an introverted, quiet, kid in school, always under the radar. So I was very open about it initially because I didn't think I had anything to be ashamed of. Like,
Yeah.
and isn't that so true? Like, that's how children are. Like, they do whatever they're gonna do, and they feel however they're gonna feel until we step in and make them feel ashamed for doing certain things and showing
Yeah.
certain emotions. So I had that childlike, like, yeah, this is what I'm doing, whatever. And then as I started getting reactions from people, I was like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't be so forthcoming.
Oh, yeah. And lectured. Did you get lectured by people saying, "Oh, this is not a good thing," and that kind of stuff?
Never lectured, but like I had a couple of guys that I thought were such like cool guys and good friends, and say things to me like, "Oh, well, what club are you working at? Oh, will you give me a lap dance?" Or like just things that were so like, huh? Like I thought it was like, huh? Whereas somebody else from the outside probably would have been like, well, you're stripping. What do you expect people to talk to you like? I really didn't see that differentiation between myself and what I was doing because I was still just me. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Still just me. And so, other people's perception get into their.
Were there uncomfortable situations like that where there would have been people you knew in the clubs at times, or did that ever happen?
There was one incident. Oh my God.
Like the priest from the priest.
Not the priest, but the pizza shop owner. The pizza shop owner that my grandparents, his shop was like 2 blocks from my grandparents, and I was always at my grandparents growing up. We went there all the time. My grandmother used to talk to his mother, who was cooking in the back, an Italian. And so this guy saw me grow up. He walked into the club one time and he didn't initially recognize me because it was years. And he said, "Oh, who's that girl over there?" And when they were like, "Oh, some gentleman would like a dance with you," and I was like, "Oh my fucking God, it's Vito." And I was like, "No, tell him I'm sick. Tell him my shift is over." I said, "No, this is not fucking going down right now."
Yeah.
And it's funny because he got a glimpse of me, and then I knew it clicked for him because then he hauled out of there. He hauled shit out of there. So it was like,
Vito, run for his
what are you doing here? I'm like, what are you doing here?
Who's, everyone, no one's going to say a word to anybody. No one wants to speak.
That's not getting out.
Yeah.
And now it's for the rest of your life on the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. That's when you said this freedom of, I had a call with a relative. I probably shouldn't go into too many details nowadays because other people are here besides us. But I was speaking to them and I spoke from the freedom that you spoke from a moment ago. Like, the shackles are gone. I'm fucking living, I'm okay if you don't like me, but fucking get out of my way. Like it's all good. I'm over I got to change so you feel less uncomfortable. Like that's gone. And then
this was today.
This was yesterday.
Yesterday.
And then this sweet voice came back and it just said, "Andy, I totally get it. And I still need things from society."
Oh, wow.
And it was it was like a beautiful moment where there wasn't judgment towards me or the other or anything. It was more like an appreciation of a state.
Yes.
Like there's an estate where we all can see that like we are in need or desire or longing for connection, and connection comes when we alter our behavior so that we're societally considered whatever normal is.
Right.
And it was really beautiful to hear this come back from someone in their early 20s. So that was really quite special. Yeah.
That's incredible. And when we put our guard down and we live the example, it's one thing to tell people, "Oh, you should do this. You should be your most authentic self." You hear that shit all the time.
Yeah.
It's one thing to say to people. It's another thing to model it for people.
Yeah.
It's another thing to show up as your authentic, I like to call it full frontal or bare ass self,
Yeah.
and show people your spirit and your soul and how, you know, you walk around differently, you speak differently. And when people see it, rather than hear you, you know, should all over them, it hits them differently too.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
That's what I always say, because in the like the Buddhist traditions, there's not like the Bible that you read. It's that the monk, through their behavior, will teach the people that are around them. So it's through the example, not through the word.
Right.
And I've always found that in my world, how I want to live is that, you know, I actually, it's not all that dissimilar, because in a way I will be mentoring Bambos. And I had an individual in my life where I basically sold everything I owned just to be in his environment for the 10 years that I was with him.
Wow.
And what I got in those 10 years was to sort of take on another persona, because through being with this individual, I learned what life felt like if I took that jacket and wore it. But it was hard. It was hard to wear it myself. So I needed to see how he wore it. And then in time, I could wear it myself.
So for those of you who want to be more of this, watch this podcast over and over again.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, but I don't know if, do you think they get it from the podcast? I don't think so.
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Before we started the podcast, I used to record every fucking conversation we would have, and I go back and listen to it and like hammer it into my brain.
And you know what the nice thing is it's like, I see that it's a state of being. It isn't being right. So like, I'll be wrong in 50% of the things I say, and it doesn't fucking matter. It's like, am I listening to myself speak and hearing where it doesn't sound right and immediately saying, hold on, this doesn't sound right. You know, or like I told a client the other day, do this, don't say that. And then they said, I don't know what to do then. I said, well, tell me what you're going to say. And then they said back to me exactly the thing I told them not to say. And I said, oh, that's perfect. You know, because I could hear the intonation and the way they said it was far more important than the words they were using. And I was concerned the words they were using were going to limit their connection with this other individual. But in actuality, they were connected to that space of, I'm not judging you, I'm not judging me, I'm just stating this. And the words he used, in a way, the nuance of words, people can interpret some words easier than others. So I'll try to take out the words that can be used to interpret in my own language. Just because why do I need another thing to stop us from connecting? Right. But if it's done authentically, that's always for me more important than the words one uses, of course.
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely.
The intention. I had a question. So what was, with your now husband, what was the thing that was, what would you say, categorically different around the relationship with him compared to the toxic relationships before?
Oh my God.
That says it all.
He's secure. He's a secure person. He never needed me to stroke. He never needed anyone to stroke his ego. He, responsible, respectful. He gave me room, and this was the big selling point for me. He gave me room to be me without judgment. He gave me room to be me without judgment. He welcomed me into his world without conditions or without making me feel like I had to win him. Like, not to say that he's like a spineless thing, you know, whatever. He can get anyone he wants, which also made me feel really special because he's just that amazing of a person. But he gave me space, but he also made me feel loved in the actions and in his considerations towards me. So it was this thing where I knew that I was genuinely cared for. And he didn't just say these outrageous things, you know, to feed me lines. He did these things that were not even outrageous, but just straight from the heart, that showed that he cared and that he was a gentleman, and that he took pride in, and I know I might get shit for this, but whatever, he took a lot of pride in the traditional role of being the provider and being the stand-up, like I protect you, I'll take care of you, but I'll also, because I'm so secure, let you and support you in any way I can for you to go out there and do your own thing.
Mm.
And that's just, I mean, that's what you want in life. You want someone who allows you to be yourself, loves you for who you are. And, you know, when they go out and do their own thing, you know that they're secure enough that they don't need to go out and look for that ego stroke, because that's
Mm.
something my exes, they were so incredibly self-conscious. And even though I had this perception of them that they were the ones with the power, I finally realized that I actually started feeling pity towards them, because they felt so powerless that they had to try to control me and they had to abuse me in order to feel any sense of power and being seen. So just the fact that he was the total opposite in that sense, that he could say, oh, go out and have fun with your friends, you know, and not have that control. And I could say, oh, you go and have fun with your friends, and not have a knot in my stomach about what I'm going to, you know, what's going to be in his wallet, or phone calls at odd hours. Like, it was liberation. It was just total freedom to love and freedom to be loved. That's all, you know, that's what it boiled down to.
Yeah, that like, I swear to you, I'll be with people in it, like literally in the first say minute. Like, there'll be subtle interactive moments, subtle, I don't know, you could call them micro expressions, but I've never done a course, but that's the words I've heard. Like that little snapshot of a facial expression that says everything that relationship is about through a reaction from what one of them says.
Yeah.
He's going out with his friends next day. You know, like whatever the like that, and it's amazing
Milliseconds.
how much you can tell about what that relationship is like. And people, I don't think, are aware of how much they're giving away all the time if perceptive people are around them. You know, that's you know, I'll always make, because as a kid, that was sort of the superpower, was like seeing the little facial and then writing the narrative that was pretty easy to write if you could see.
Yeah.
And then just having fun. But my mom called me the shit stirrer because I made trouble with that, of course.
Not only his mom, but his teachers and his dad.
Yes. I wasn't loved by many. I have a question that's probably the most important one of the show.
Okay.
At certain moments in your speaking, you switch to another accent. Do you do that because it's different, or are you even aware that that happens, or am I hearing it totally differently?
Well, what's the accent?
I don't know. It's earlier on the show, you mimic someone that talked in another way, as if they were speaking without the Long Island accent. And what I wanted to know was, if you imitate a person, can you talk as if you come from California?
Probably no better than anyone else that would do an imitation, because the Long Island accent is so I get that from everyone. It's so
there was like two times on the show. There was two times on the show which I noted, sorry, and it may be just a false positive on my end, but when you would be totally animated, I could almost see you working at the strip club in my head, like, oh, this is how she was in her fiery days there. And then there were days when you would switch, and I would hear you almost the Long Island accent go down to the point where it was sounded almost like you'd be in the most business environment ever doing a CEO pitch. And
That's so funny. Well, I mean, my energy, like I just have my energy flows, and I don't know if my accent maybe changes a little bit when the energy flows. But I feel like maybe when I talk about something that is a little bit more serious and I want to get it across like in a more serious way, maybe I do cut down the Long Island a little bit. But that's an interesting observation.
Okay.
And now I'm watching videos of myself and see.
I just thought that it was something others would have said, but obviously not. Because on one show we were discussing with someone that was on the show that was African American, and we got into the discussion of code switching, which we were unfamiliar with, which is that if we were Black interviewers, that the interviewer that they would have spoken differently to us.
Oh.
And that was a word we learned from one of the shows that we had earlier.
Well,
I know nothing about American accents, by the way.
Let's just say, Cass Midgley, our audio engineer, please delete the last 3 minutes, because clearly I didn't know what I was talking about.
You're not Jewish, are you?
I'm actually Italian and Black.
Oh, is that right? Oh, funny.
Yeah.
What do you got, Bam? I want to know, you mentioned that when you told your husband of this, that he made a joke. Yeah. But going forward after that, were there issues that came up, any trust issues, or did he say, honey, can you do a dance for me? Like, what happened afterwards?
No. No, you know what it is? What it is about my husband is he's really protective of me. So like, he's not comfortable with me talking about it because he feels like he wants to shield me from other people's perception.
What
Which is
lovely.
crazy because he knows I have a certain degree of crazy in me. Like if someone really wanted to get crazy, like my tongue could be a very deadly weapon, but I choose not to go that route these days. But like I'm really good at sticking up for myself, and I'm already at that point where what are you going to say to me that's going to hurt my feelings? But he still has, because of his protectiveness of me. It's not that it bothers him, but he knows how other people think. He doesn't want them to think like that of me. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah, but that is beautiful, that sentiment, right?
Of
Yeah, because
course.
I think if you love someone so much, the last thing you want is the feeling that they might put themselves in a situation that isn't safe for them, or whatever it might be. So that
Right.
is quite beautiful, actually.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's another reason, you asked before, what's so different about this relationship? Not only would he never hurt me, like he'd jump in front of a train for me and not even have to think about it.
Yeah. We had one comment that came in from Bolalong in South Africa. He's always with us. He says, I think my real behavior will attract the people who deserve to be in my life. If I change it to accommodate others, I will miss those important people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that I think as one ages and they see that they're spending time with people that don't bring them connection in themselves, they just don't feel well, that they'll just slowly, they don't need to be with people as much when at least I've noticed in my own life. So you tend to have fewer and fewer people that you really want to spend time with. And
Yeah.
those that you do, you just really enjoy because you feel better afterwards. Yeah.
You don't need the distractions, right? Like once you start getting more comfortable in yourself and accepting of yourself, you don't need the distractions. You don't need the people that are just like the gestures in front of you. What is it? The court jesters that they used to have, the kings that are just juggling, just entertainment. You don't need that shit anymore. You have your own things that you're doing. You have good people around you that you love spending time with. And more importantly, you feel comfortable spending time with yourself. Believe it or not, I am the biggest introvert and I love being in my own energy. And when I'm around a lot of people, I can enjoy it and I could be, I could talk like this, but I need my time to completely withdraw right after that and recharge in my own energy. And when I was younger, I couldn't do that. I needed my distractions.
Yeah. We have had an incredible time with you, and we haven't actually discussed anything of what you do today. So it would be nice just to let anyone know what you actually do for a living and how you've been gracious enough to talk about stuff that isn't necessarily even pertaining to what you do.
Thank you. Well, I am a business mindset coach. And like I said, I'm usually on podcasts talking about how you can strategically use your personal growth to grow your business and get more clients, because, my motto is you show me a business that is, not growing, I'll show you an owner who has, become stagnant with their own inner work and their own personal growth. So that's what I do. I had great success. Like I said, I went and I became an ultrasound tech, but I stopped that because we had our children back to back and I needed to be home. And, and I'm not one to just do one thing. I'm one to challenge myself. So I love it. I love, and I'm sure you can attest to this, I love helping people have those breakthrough moments. I love seeing them get a little uncomfortable in that body shift when I know that they're about to make that shift, and it's like, oh, you got it, you're right there. So yeah, that's what I do now.
And how does one find you?
You can go to my website. It's lisalatimer.com. You can join my Facebook group, She's So Boss Mindset, and my podcast is She's So Boss Mindset as well.
Nice. Well, thank you for being with us. I have to say, we didn't speak. We said, okay, I'm going to put this crazy title on the show. And I have to admit, when I put those on and we haven't spoken beforehand, I'm always not sure what the hell is going to happen. So in a way, it was like this is a roll of the dice. And I just have to tell you, it was really incredible to be with you. And I'm really grateful for the time we had together.
Maybe we can come up with a more interesting subject.
Yeah, I think
we didn't talk about depression.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we'll have to have another show because this hour went way too fast, and there's far more interesting topics we also didn't.
You haven't written a book yet, right?
I do. I have a book that I self-published on Amazon. It's called Who the Fuck Are You? And it's about self-awareness. There's a little bit of about my journey in there, a lot of what we talked about. Because I really think that, that knowledge of yourself and that acceptance and understanding of yourself is your greatest asset in this world.
Beautiful.
Who
The fuck
are you?
This was fun.
Who? We send you love. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll see you again, I know, at some point for sure.
Adios.
If she'll have us after that, once her husband watches the show, he's going to say, no, you can't go back on with those two idiots.
From Amsterdam.
At least the guy with the blue hat. You can go back with the other one. He seemed a little bit more calm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's Thursday? Is that right?
Yeah.
Wow.
And tomorrow, do you know what tomorrow is?
It creeps in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time.
Is your date night.
It's my date night tomorrow night. It is.
I love it.
And tomorrow's show. What is our show tomorrow, Bambos? Charles Demetriou?
I think it's going to be an interesting one anyway.
Really? You think?
Because I was putting the shows in.
Yes. Can you turn off the show today? You're listening to ourselves. It's the worst when you do that.
I know. Tomorrow, guys, we have, here we go, drum roll. Growing up in a Christian cult.
I have to laugh at the titles of these shows. Oh my!
It will be, I think, the 6th or 8th show that we have a Christian cult.
Yeah, but each one has a little different nuance, which makes it interesting. In fact, I think we could do like a series of Christian cult shows. Like for some reason, this keeps showing up.
It's funny. A mutual friend of ours.
Yeah.
Gabriel.
Yeah. Okay.
He actually grew up in a Christian community, and then he became a monk, and then he broke out of that.
Oh wow!
And he's like really an amazing coach.
I guess we have another Christian cult story coming up on the pipeline. We will see you tomorrow. Tomorrow in this petty pace from day to day to the last syllable of recorded time on a wonderful Bambos Not Talking Chaos.